I sent out the group me.
Just let them figure it out. We'll start.
He texted me.
We're gonna be here till like 10 if we don't start.
Yeah. Okay.
Alright, everyone good? Yeah.
Natural gas. I always thought natural gas. Yeah, I'm good. Michael? Alright.
If Dennis wanted to warming is really anthropogenic, we must cut emissions. Harvey 13, following 7 years, new reach of the IPCC said warming is likely across 2 sea consequences, including sea level rise, heat waves, and changes to rainfall over to see the world can only emit 880 gigawatts of burning of fossil fuels. Is the main reason we had 40% increase in the last 2 decades. It's been successfully warmer than since 1850. Scientists face attacks from funded by vested into that big conclusion made by the IPCC. Much faster scrutiny by all the world's governments before it can be published, and it's not inevitable as long as we reduce emissions. Models show what's meant for the IPCC that's left is that humans are wrecking our climate. The problem could be solved, and renewable energy is the way to do it. Race 100 scientists and more than thousands of cubic meters generated. We have 15 years slash emissions renewable technology available. Power technology have become simpler. I go over to sound. We solve one natural gas and readily reduces emissions. It also causes a transition to renewables turn path at all 13. This shall revolutionarily reduce emissions by 500 million tons of energy. Analysts Miller estimates the coal to gas, which is the largest single factor for emission reduction for wind utility, effectively integrated the relying additional backup of 70% capacity of renewables will occur in partnership with expanded newly flexible gas exciting new rules to expand the types of electricity generation. 2 zero carbon bridge. Gas that integrates renewables to the grid and leads to carbon capture. Look at chart 13. Renewables complicate the operation of electricity system. For example, the wind generators require operators to make significant adjustment balance generation load, creating inefficiency by brought by back and firming capacity. Gas fired plants can accelerate the integration. Even extended wind gas can reduce output in the middle of efficiency. The last energy plants to offer flexibility. Renewables have seen rapid things to tax instead of cheap natural gas represents opportunity for carbon capture technology. Can understand motivated for cost makes them more amenable to carbon capture. And we don't need new infrastructure. Renewables will stay cost competitive, but it's around worth 09. Only about 2/5 of the capacity is used, a little to no additional cost infrastructure. Gas and themselves to coal without any new plant or transmission. Gas will provide firming or backup fuel that can enable wind and solar. Methane leaks don't matter. Overall externalities go off. Look at chart 13. The natural gas produces half the CO2 emissions like that. One natural gas is rich as one candidate. CFC can find a stabilized CO2 gas limit concentration 550 ppm. There's strong evidence the leakage kind of will be lowered substantially. Total leakage was the current temperature that was the low cost high. In back in the rest of the climate models suggest that warming trends after the lesser with the rate of the methane leakage or more to do with the thermal efficiency of the coal fuzz. Over the switch of gas is permanent. We cut emissions by 40%. Outweighs methane because CO2 is more permanent. Cathode 12. Gas reduces warm by 40%. Methane leads already said are 1% of production. Even the leakage was higher than 40% of zero carbon benefit less shortly because the methane removed completely from the atmosphere, whereas CO2 is not. It's modeled internationally, rightly 12. Unless the cheap substitute is found, would it be impossible to any carbon development of gas could be the best way? This is just what's across the planet. Cheap development offer the same benefits as coal. The use of gas would give the planet time to develop renewables. So China has set up as gas development program that will be output for 800 radios a year. We're launching on determined the goal of the U.S. and multiple cohort of 13 nations with the U.S. is good lead the winning creating incredible alternative climate change strategy, which has to move zero to cuts in emission. And 3 is coal. Natural gas usage mitigates harmful effects of coal and reduces emissions. Tremble at 13. Gas production have far smaller impact on pollution to communities in coal climate reduces amounts of contamination with waste controls. Gas supply and a few square feet innovation gas result in less oxygen tracking chemicals. Fuel plants are better. Natural gas is cheaper than coal, makes it easier to impose air pollution regulation plants. Shoot gas. Where does that going to work? Invest in development zero carbon replacement. 4 steel. Natural gas boosts steel industry competitiveness. Increase supply and low cost use. 13. Cheap natural gas provided boosted steel supply means heat up company export review and manufacturing the curse of result that gets going to increase demand for the company's benefit. If the gas lowers the cost of energy for companies, competitors are large investors to lower labor. So it was continued natural gas is a game changer for our industry. The industry is vulnerable to economic pressures such as rising energy costs and natural competitors are to capitalize on research that solves warming. RP Newswire 90 industry is cutting energy efficiency by 33% steel. The most recycled material will help in America's green energy because what happens with the wind and steel has increased production while cutting energy consumption. The industry is currently conducting research that would dramatically reduce or eliminate CO2 emission. We control uniqueness. Demand is set to increase in the shale industry is about to collapse. New supply is critical. Fund 14. The belief that gas is the national 100 supply zero funded drilling funded setting the stage for volatile prices in the near future. New demand will come for gas power plants, chemical complexes, manufacturing, and charge made to liquefy natural gas. The horizontal was going to steep decline development of good use of private invested industry will once again be able to treadmill. Warming is faster than McHugh, and it's worse than the Able Cop of basketball. Diablo 7. There's one major existential threat which demands an action. International panel predicts brutal droughts, floods, storms, climate change could alter which could wipe away snow caps, and the spread of cholera, malaria, rising temperatures have been a kind of rising increase in destructive hurricanes. We are already mass efforts in plants being able to be changing the state to continue with the U.S. alone for what they could cost 13 to 26% of GDP. Human costs is with the current aspects that can really rush for leverage is going to burn everything up, and everything will go when it's an equivalent nuclear weapon. The better support it's not if the continued system of life on the planet. Our discourse is justified. Doomsday representations are critical to create change. Round 12. The two greatest myths about warming communication representing dimensions and strategy. Their strategy doesn't work. Scientists based on to move the planet to become more concerned about the threat. Plus, when the social science literature cannot be good, they're only repeated massive chance of mistaken in a moving. Neither when the media do not cover composition to overwhelm the coverage of food or devoid of any doomsday message. The media outlets feature hardcore deniers. At least according to Republic, choose the media devoted time to the notion of warming. The host and environmental section, but the clean energy is a joke. In the plan, the United States federal government should substantially increase its natural gas development in the outer continental shelf. Advantage 2 is Arctic leadership. Arctic exploration is inevitable. U.S. leadership is behind now. Luthi 14, the Arctic will be supported the other country. And we the U.S. to silent Arkansas has great potential natural gas. The U.S. should make 2014 a year of action. And gas helps environmental regulations. Russia's environmental protection is worse than Ku's math problems. Sullivan 12.
The fuck?
New technologies on like research investors are reckoning the U.S. has an enormous rates of gas, particularly in Alaska. We have the highest environmental standards and should be setting the bar. Developing our research, strengthening our global leadership and energy is developing U.S. for its added benefit of enhancing global environmental protection. We would delay development of the end results of driving investment and protection to countries lower standards. We would not pursue development. Russia, China will dominate production for markets. Scenario 1 is the environment without U.S. presence. Russian drilling will inevitably destroy the Arctic ecosystem. Our experts are on our side. Harvey and Market 13 to stable in the Arctic depths with devastating consequences. Russian government have begun exploitation of oil would naturally run down naturally to switch from the Arctic. Oil can take decades, so this could have a very big consequence. The Arctic is a habitat for diverse widely impact on these already vulnerable species would be devastating, and a spill would be more toxic than the stench in Theo's room WF10. Supporting millions of migrated red bears, walrus, and narwhals, the fisheries among the richest in the world. Arctic functions of the global thermostatic Arctic. It's a key ecosystem for an entire planet. Disruption happening already. This climate change melts sea ice and thaws the Arctic tundra. As we spoil, we are nudging the Arctic towards the meltdown with the catastrophic consequences for all life on Earth. The more people die from biodiversity, less than the combined number of work details given out by Kim, Sahara, and Kendall. Silence 11 biodiversity on decline, both on a global and local scale. Perceives as radically going to the function of the ecosystem biodiversity. That's to give you the considered function. The world is changing ever faster. Reduction diversity is such a crucial factor in maintaining the Earth's life's war function. Scenario 2 is conflict and resolution. Tensions are rising between Arctic nations. U.S. is behind AP 612. As climate change is the way the CS nations are getting labeled a competition for potential gas to join military exercises and suspend nations accused of Russia and China of launching cyber attacks to Arctic weakening strategic reports that will make them more accessible. The U.S. is lagging behind the race. Russia and India has been accused of using clandestine means to secretly secret about the Arctic plans and activities of its Western partners, and conflict will escalate as countries scramble for research to rapidly support accidents that lead to summer about summoning the Arctic to be ice freeze in early 2016 that leaves countries can't believe reaches to straight down cooperation to break down this, but it's going to cause pushback on the side of the Russian Arctic. The more integrating U.S. leadership is key to prevent escalation. Workers in a way the other Arctic powers are racing to cover the region. The U.S. is made larger on the side of the world. Solely superpower, the country that borders the Bering Strait and possesses over 1,000 miles of Arctic coastline has been left out of the cold Washington on 40 San Alabama decision member Arctic powers over finally shape the future of the region while U.S. leadership enough to above solution to claims of potential conflict in the region could erect an armed dashboard to the region. This conflict will be hotter than fits on the beach walls in Staples 10. The Arctic is a zone of increased military competition. The two nuclear weapon states which own 95% of their weapons underwater coverage in the Arctic would allow into conflict could lead to conflict against the U.S. nuclear weapons and nuclear find themselves in military confrontation could be taken like the issue is uncertainty and the high probability of Arctic conflict tossed in RE12. Plus, make exclude the Arctic risk is setting into conflict in words of getting the growing strategic importance and high North American ice most due to global warming. The opens of new opportunity activity is often characterized by a sense of urgency to political conflict over native research. Our actions speak louder than the word. Our actions that speak louder. The Arctic powers are fast approaching diplomatic government. They could lead to the sort of armed brinkmanship that plagues other territories. And Obama recently announced a new seismic studies to determine where resources might be located. It's entirely separate from decisions about resource development, which the plan authorizes, but is perceived as pro-industry move, which makes all disad links non-unique. HC-17 Obama greenlighted a search for possible gas companies to apply for permits to help with new possible drilling by giving industry a chance to prove gas potential. As Obama assembles a 5-year plan for offshore lease environmentalists accused administration came into the industry, but industry didn't get everything it wanted. The plan is limited to 7 to 8 Fridays. Edition does not authorize any specific activities. Companies still have to win permits. The government's not testing does not dictate any future decisions on gas drilling or conservation about threatening legal action slowing the timeline. And drilling is fast leaks applications are already being reviewed. Debating 14 agencies receiving a handful of applications for companies requesting to cut seismic testing and analytics to determine whether drilling might be feasible. The recent environmental review, but it's at the agency 5-year plan. The president would open the Atlantic to drilling in 2011. This is going to average 71 different atomic companies and average in the time to approve last year. The number of days had declined to 59. The number is coming down.
Your modeling card is about shale gas, not natural gas off the shore. How do you solve?
Which modeling card?
The card about modeling international for warming is about shale gas, not natural gas offshore. How do you solve?
Well, the card's more about how we're modeled as using like safer technologies like natural gas, which has less emissions.
The card is talking about exporting shale technology to India and China. Why does
it's an empirical example of how when we have taken leadership on an environmental issue, they have had more confidence.
Then why hasn't the shale production and status quo already shown them how the technology works?
That's an empirical example of how the U.S. taking leadership is able to convince other countries that our model is best.
Yeah, so I'm asking why didn't the shale gas already get them to model our natural gas reserves? Why is
because we haven't pushed the natural gas bridge on them yet.
Okay. Also from the card, such a strategy would include establishing a series of shale gas trust that would disseminate information and know how to assist in building regulatory capacity. How does the app do that?
I have no idea what you just said.
The card indicates that we need to create a shale gas trust and help build regulatory capacity in China. How does the app do that?
That's already done right now.
Yeah. Okay, sure.
They just need more supply.
Where in the outer continental shelf where is the U.S. outer continental shelf?
Not exactly sure. Do you know about that, Coop?
Like, you know how geography works and how the ocean starts shallow and then bam, it goes really deeper? Like, all the areas surrounding the U.S. before, bam, it goes real deeper. That's the outer continental shelf.
Okay, you're telling me all the areas around the U.S. before bam. Got it. Okay.
Could you just ask more strategic questions? I don't know where that gets you. Write those down in your comments.
Okay. Steel internal link. The American steel industry is currently connecting research on the next generation steelmaking technologies that will dramatically reduce or eliminate CO2 emissions. Why is the new natural gas key to steel industry? If they're already researching them, why do new natural gas have to help the steel industry?
Let me find that card. Let's see. So it increases supply and lowers costs.
Sure, but they're currently conducting research on these systems that will decrease CO2. Why does new investment?
Well, it says that natural gas is a game changer for the industry, and currently the amount of effort we're putting into that industry is not enough.
They need cheaper prices.
Your card about the scramble in the Arctic talks about how cooperation is breaking down now. Why does the U.S. going into the Arctic and drilling resources help solve a lack of cooperation?
Well, the problem is we do not solve cooperation like countries don't start cooperating, but we're able to keep Russia and China out.
So we just how do we keep Russia and China out of Russia's EEZ?
Russia's EEZ?
How do we keep Russia out of Russia's outer continental shelf?
Well,
how do we keep Russia out of Russia's territorial waters in the Arctic?
We don't keep Russia out of Russia's territorial waters.
Well, then how do you stop
you're just talking about the spilling internal link, right?
No, he said you have to keep Russia out to stop war. How do you stop war?
Wait, we don't need to keep Russia out of their own territory to stop war.
5 off, Arctic warming.
I sent you the very, very final version of my Twitter blocks.
Okay. Wait, just now?
Yeah.
Okay.
This one is like SeaWorld. You two are in the splash zone. Watch out.
Because you spin a lot.
Yeah.
Fuck.
I already knew that.
Give me a sec. How many off is it?
5. You know, the number of IQ points you have.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh, yeah, about that. Alright.
Wait, can I have one more piece of paper from someone?
Here.
You can take
I have 3. I have a bunch.
5 off, Arctic warming. Right. Is everybody ready?
First off, is Paulton, ExIm will pass down the Sherman policy every time ExIm is more than Republicans, acceptance, session, Senate, the ExIm, the priority, Republicans, the people, the major, the local, ExIm, and portable, only passive GOP, Democrats work together, bipartisan, that's Frick 7-1. Historical handsome, the controversy, partisans, for the average, yes, the policy did now ocean, policy spark, political partnership, imperious energy lobbies, and age of fragmentation, that's Hellbark 14. America seeking to do vitally manage the Congress to polarize nation for the conference, mobilize 80% of the couples before the public. He goes into the major in the ocean. He supports the Now, the ExIm is critical. U.S. manufacturing prevents foreign out competition. That's Ferry 713. American products American jobs turn to American products ExIm the business ExIm export out to the field export. Larger manufacturers the export now manufacturing losses devastates the economy. That's P. Shannon issue 12. When a loser country loses the capability of manufacturing the world sector implications of the country need a critical interest out of interest in that's the business across the line through one and impacts. Now the next office is outside of the Athens and asocial service ruled by neoliberal. What?
I didn't read the impact. Isn't there econ impact in that?
No.
Next off is neoliberalism. The ocean is an asocial surface filled by neoliberal policies that Steinberg A. Conservative marine environmental resources and the degradation of the environmental challenge must be realized with the context of neoliberal policy. The ability of the excellent participate the path to emerge the object should navigate the social development of the resources of the right now. Neoliberalism is cause the extinction, but negative never reject the economic intrusion of this Clark and cause an A. The ocean is the ecological question of the global absence of economic exploitation of the ocean, the ecological absence of the nature of the system, the structure nature discussed of all these revolution global sense. Now next off is how the interpretation of the ocean or distinct from the seabed floor that lies in beneath and that's Marbeth 13 oceans are there is in the now violation the avenue increases exploration and development the seabed not the ocean they are ecologically distinct that's Berkman 11 ecologically distinct the seafloor traditional that is now standards 1 limits the topics already massive the allows anything and then try to massive export of the seabed because the exploration and development means nothing extra interpretation tells me the way to realistically on boundaries of the topic now topic education they shift the focus to the seabed development instead of genuine ocean development which kills for the clash and cold development no extra topic only for the after develop both the ocean and the seabed as if they win seabed exhibition distinct from the within the scope of the topical topic voting issue to competitive and activity jurisdiction.
Now go back to politics. This is embarrassing, Michael.
Econ decline
It
causes
is.
global conflict.
agree.
That's studies. That's rural town economic plan making calculation redistributing the conflict. Version economic plan. Fabricate mentally economic performance. Stimulating the U.S. force now next. Office the spread apocalyptic really what? AC power trades environmental issues with the lens of apocalypse portraying the ecology that swing of 10. Environmental issues that the civilization ecology of the measure. Learning reduction biodiversity apocalypse the representation that the reject the introduction of apocalypse rhetoric as a gateway issue. The introduction that causes a zero-sum game which magnitude justifies the negative reading is responded. They when the rhetoric is good. We have justified the introduction. That's assuming the 13. The relative of the problems of apocalyptic environmental social and the tractor to the realization of the members. Now, next up is the counterplan. The tax. The United States federal government should increase natural gas development in the Atlantic, Gulf of Mexico, and Pacific outer continental shelf regions. Atlantic South is open for natural gas. That's duly 13. Gas and water now go to Arctic. So status quo solved. DoD's investing in capabilities of instead of Arctic leadership. That's where to. Idea 2011 DoD cooperation capability provide the new expertise capacity capacity system. The U.S. president has no can't believe biodiversity collapse. That's Joe 2K. Piece of biodiversity and the contribution to absence of the value measures and habits of biodiversity loss. No, but the functioning presumably unresilient which is due to the redundancy found in the system. Now new Arctic energy development encroaches on U.S. sphere of influence. That's military conflict. That's Europe 13. Gas spots will be on highly militarized confrontation, U.S. relation. In fact, competition with the military force could be a part of the theory of the neutral signal that you just put interest on some competition. Now Arctic military competition of what?
Skip that card.
Okay, skip that card. Turn all halting Arctic gas development is better for the U.S. and the environment. Turn on U.S. leadership. That's Kelly 14. Environmental devastation caused by vulnerability, escalation, pollution, the determination of the environment, the U.S. state of freezing, Arctic official development, the all together has included collaboration with the Arctic leases as of 2016 and 27 down. No, law the CES session means that leadership is impossible. That's 12. Leaders of the rights of the race country to claim that the son of the state country, Russia's Canada, Denmark, the exclusive rights of the to a lot of their interest. Now, Arctic drilling causes spills. That's Hanklin at all 12. When HBS drilled the hydrates become unsafe, the hydrate, drilling operations. Get lives with the collapse of Russian West Asia doesn't occur in the environment hydrogen in the future we're likely to force to drill deeper water Arctic environments. Now Russia basically can't or drill into the Arctic. That's Schumann 12. Russian all the team do that everything across the Arctic foreign investment company the whole back to Russia the export companies management skills in the land oceans but everyone is brutal climate conditions rhythm of controlling high sensibility. Now chemicals critical to oil and gas product disrupt biological systems across the food chain. That's Gale and Herd 11. Disclosure of the U.S. economic critical biology that's the chemicals food chain lower concentration they send the whole population now can't prevent the impact. That's Louis 423. That card's not highlighted. Skip that card.
Read all the highlighting, Drew.
Go to warming.
No, like actually.
No, scratch that card.
He meant another cards.
Offshore drilling fails time tech regulation. That's Plumber 12. Outer countries of the world. The host gas production 30% 2034 production. And all geological resources happens to be some of the producers of the main technology don't regardless production. One of the opposite getting another goal from next oil spills. Now CO2 doesn't cause accelerate the alarmist and empirical studies. That's C3H14. The oils become the CO2 propaganda as time to scare the public after the mission for 25 years. That's warming is not the tropical cooling. Now no a model internal link. The underlying part is describes the strategy for natural gas. You should do other things than the Athens Raleigh 12. That's just trying to include establishing shale lakes after the building rate the drug gas is second part of the agricultural installation compensation loss in the production trade will be vital. No impact of warming. That's Stratford 13. Environments of the complex breathing now come because very big testing to left from these things of the returns activism often the climate change increase but nothing on the environment because prediction of another ammonia took the competitive predictions. Now US and global emissions are decreasing now shift to fossil fuel reserves. The trend that's Wales 13. Increasing global economy shelter because the shift towards renewable energy use increase less than half of the link between the global emissions the return of the production mitigate trends the study of the loss of and renewable they're trying to get ahead of the permanent CO2 emissions as to reach the battery renewable energy. Now exports intensify warming and make it irreversible. That's ROM 12. International emissions higher than FCC shipping the 28% exports increase the GH and the natural gas are worse with the climate. The infrastructure is settled those last day and applying the catastrophic impacts. Now US shale deposits are sufficient free market solving demand prices low. That's price 13. Natural gas from shale is driven down pricing. U.S. production is spread to the last 600,000 barrels free. Working now. U.S. manufacturing is on sustainable rise. More recent data proves that trade online today 620. The U.S. manufacturing is done as pieces of manufacturing. Business of the cheapest manufacturing time of the rebound cycle. The U.S. again for 4 times manufacturing today. Expected from cycle of factors now. Because the manufacturing industry before itself that's Hall and 12. A boom in rent releases and pushes up the value of the country. The currency strong. Currency undermines domestic manufacturing position. Price of the American made goes down to see the pernicious natural gas because capital investment is not generating many jobs. Canada's government does see the higher the health of the manufacturing. America's dollar shift and eroding the common manufacturing products.
That's what
Alright, let's just call that steel. Alright, raw 6.
Can we make you go for anything?
What do you mean?
Can we make you go for anything?
The off-case positions, such as the counterfeit and the neoliberalism K, are conditional.
Okay. Politics. Where does your uniqueness evidence say will pass?
The uniqueness evidence, the Sherman and Pulver evidence indicates that 16
No,
times...
where does it say? I'll read the whole card. ExIm is important. Republicans will accept an extension from the Senate without significant reforms. ExIm is a priority.
Good. Republicans will accept an extension from the Senate without significant reforms.
Where does that say it will pass?
Right. Accepting an extension means it's going to pass.
Without reforms. So status quo is going to pass?
Yes.
Okay. Your key to manufacturing card. So it has a line that says, where is it? This line says, ExIm assists small businesses seeking to export. Is your internal link based on small businesses?
It also indicates things like major companies like Boeing also rely on it. But it probably helps out the smaller manufacturers more.
Okay. Why don't previous economic collapses disturb your impact?
Right. This would be strictly worse because of the manufacturing losses necessarily. Even in the...
Where does your impact evidence say that?
The Pishano and She 12 evidence indicate that when we lose I'll actually read you the line. When a country loses the capability to manufacture, it loses the ability to innovate. A decline of competitiveness in one sector can have implications for another. Industry suppliers need to kill each other, right? So it's the fundamental collapse of all
just so we're clear,
sectors.
this card doesn't actually say the word economy.
Sure. It does not, in the highlighted portion, say the word economy.
Okay. Define neoliberalism.
Neoliberalism is a set of policies and practices by the United States federal government to maintain its economic and economic dominance of
can
countries.
only be used by the United States federal government.
Right. Neoliberalism and the terms of our authors are, yes, in terms of U.S. policies.
Okay. What's the impact using apocalyptic rhetoric?
Right. The first swing, I don't know how to say the card, so I just say it's swinged in 10. Evidence indicates that when we use environmental apocalyptic in terms of the environment, it recreates this feeling of fear, which means that we can never overcome the actual impacts. It also means that we forget the actual impact to the environment.
So, like, when does that impact happen?
Right. It indicates that there are environmental impacts happening now, and the fact that you use ecological fear means that we ignore.
My question is, does that impact that you're talking about happen as soon as we say extinction?
Right. Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. The idea is based off of the.
But your DA is separate.
Huh? Yeah. That's the point of the gateway issue.
Okay.
It proves that if you
good.
win that your rhetoric is good, then it's
so
okay.
You read a card. So you read a card on a case that says U.S. manufacturing is on a rise. It's not about steel, but your politics impact is just about generic manufacturing. How does that not non-unique your politics impact?
Right. So it's on the rise now. ExIm Bank is key to continue that, right? Because the ExIm Bank exists currently. Indicates when we lose the ExIm Bank, it would kill the manufacturing
Where does
sector.
your Trade Online Today evidence talk about the ExIm Bank?
Sure. It doesn't mention the ExIm Bank, but the argument is that ExIm kills the manufacturing sector.
Can we have a marked copy of 2 CDOC?
Huh?
1 in CDOC?
You want a what?
A marked copy of the 1 in
I didn't
CDOC?
mark any cards.
Okay, cool.
Do you need prep?
Yes. They read like 2 things that they didn't disclose to us.
Did we?
You made Pooh mad.
You don't have the royal card. I'm sorry.
No, I'm talking about the counterpoint and 2 of the terms on
Oh
Q.
yeah, I just changed that. Sorry.
Oh, well, that's not okay.
Olsberg, you're an asshole.
And he's- Motherfucker. What?
Oh, you douchebag.
This counterpoint isn't competitive.
Huh? What do you say?
sun input? Oh, yeah. You could.
So,
Dude, just concede that we collapse the goal.
I'm not gonna do anything. Any clarification on Arctic? What was the argument you made after Lost All Cause?
The lost alt cause.
After that.
What do you know what it was? The Arctic drilling causes spills, I believe.
That's before.
No, that's after.
That's after. Okay. And then what's the argument after that?
It's a Russia physically can't.
All right, I'm good. Oh, okay. I'm good.
Right. 534 last.
Ah, shit.
This round's being recorded, right? I won't check it afterwards.
Don't worry about it.
No. That's what happened last time. I got distracted during the debate. Alright.
Should I use this or like the one from here? Oh, say what?
Arctic warming. T. Counterplan, Neolib, Apocalyptic Rhetoric, and then the agenda just said.
Arctic warming T. Did you send it?
I did.
Oh, there we go.
Michael, could I get that over one more time?
Arctic warming. T. Counterplan. The Neolib K, I think. In Apocalyptic Rhetoric agenda. Alright, anyone not ready? Okay. Arctic advantage of Sasquatch is solved by diversity. Our evidence opposed it says that U.S. energy resources are critical because that's the only thing with economic sense. There's a collapse in biodiversity because the Arctic is key to basic ecosystems, key to species, and migration words, which investigate for ecosystem life. Because it's totally impact biodiversity, law cause extinction. Terms impact to the economy because we need resources and forces our economy. The SOI Turn first that we don't link to because we don't infringe on Russian territory. And two is the U.S. is already heading gas wars responsibility for the past U.S. has been the world's fastest growing producer gas in the 20% having gas to Russia, the world launching energy producer U.S. was changing pricing and trade by the global energy market. Now leadership solves escalation. The only way to resolve competing claims through the Arctic Council that's the Borgen standards and also U.S. leadership solves for less critical and David has way great U.S. leadership would go after the Arctic neighbors U.S. to the movement, leadership position, influence, and doing so kind of tangible U.S. right now. That didn't read the term saying that environment internally is good for environment, except that one of the factors spills out is going to take this out. The second argument is that our wanting to see internally assume this argument because we said that the U.S. has a statement internally and all office, not all cause. We solve the second leadership because we do the Arctic science, but also lost signing losses in Naval if we start exploring Arctic. Now the spills turn group if it's hard that Russian drillers now right now it'll be worse than the U.S. because we have the safe resignation. That's piece of Harvey Walker Evans. Now two is that drilling helps the environment that's island past line. The natural seas without pressure out of Russian have a large impact environment and the other disaster. Farmer was having to kill by the seeders and all the spills kind of causing the reduction of Seabed due to decrease in oil pressure. Now they say Russia can't do physically. That's the reason why it supports our war because Russia can't do right now, but they're going to try to innovatively because they are desperate right now. The pizza evidence saying that chemical key to oil and gas is not responsible internally because it said just the evidence does not make any war. He says that we can't solve the impact. He said the Arctic Council internally solves the impact because sufficiently because we release the U.S. leadership. Go to warning at first OCS drilling solved because the one C said evidence says that we have fast and efficient drilling techniques. There's demand for OCS drilling in this conscious aspect of CO2 leads to warming. We have peer review evidence. There are evidence that from a random election happening incentivized piece of Harvey and anti-Trump specifically says that the warming is increasing right now because of temperature rise, because of the CO2. He says that other things to solve. The Riley Evans proves that it's solving right now. The shale revolution has taken one step because the affirmative proves that we need to go faster. He says no impact on warming. It causes sea level rise. It's worse than Garrett's basketball skills, which is a really big impact because that is one of the worst things on earth. It's also turns the impact to the economy because the economy will be destroyed by global warming trends. Things like transportation infrastructure, things like shipping lanes will be stopped if we don't do it. He says that emissions are not rising right now. That is unique as well because it proves that the shale revolution to the first time reducing emissions. We need to do it further in order to stop warming. The exports turn. It doesn't link because we don't lead to exports because we don't lead to exports. Also, the CO stops because we green the transportation sector. That's the PR news area. It's also gas vehicles solve export emission things. And so that's the present opportunity for transportation gas vehicles clean alternative increase being used as a expansion. Make pricing now advance like clean jobs and stimulate manufacturing. Now there's no link because there's no exports that will happen. That sharing economy cross border. The debate has export divide economies to present positive tailoring approval export and another approval conservative facility. The last one especially pay longer to the privilege and the only few more reasons why export not start anti-tune. Now he says that U.S. shale industry is sufficient. First of all, the funk emphasis that it's unstable running out because we're not having enough horizontal. Well, U.S. manufacturing high right now takes out your own disadvantage because it proves that ExIm Ptix is not necessary for U.S. manufacturing because we're not doing the bill right now. You two are dumb bugs. Now the next argument is that the plan kills manufacturing. Says the plan does not kill manufacturing. Our internal industry specifically, we need to read the manufacturing internally. Except I'll read that. So later, also the steel industry is better for the manufacturing because it proves that it's a thing that the manufacturing industry made out of. Go to the Seabed. Once we meet, exploration includes the for which on 2015. Ocean exploration includes that we can solve sea for ocean side with great emphasis to place exploring water common. Now counter creation, the ocean includes the seabed that's connected to international device ocean, the EEC concept, the deep seabed prefers one is education, research that's the core to ocean policy is necessary to learn how to utilize ocean in 2000. They limit out all the apps that touch the ground. It's necessary for innovation and next by topic. Also functional limits of substantial literature, text limits of ocean, and prefer reasonability. Convenient relation creates a race to the bottom, which trades off with education. Also extra key is good. It gives a name more link rank. Because I'm a douchebag, renewable energy solves military revenues that sound trustworthy. DOD energy interfaces single liability operation, force protection liability, reducing that we are private focus very flexibility to motivate call to action, diversify, and so I use alternate energy revenues and rules for the honest possibly from overseas. And also, class of revenues makes war naval expensive 2000 armed forces, be protected to be cruise obviously the assignment like the foreign alliance, the decline of revenues in the war that U.S. not prepared, hostilities will last and never lead to combat. Now go to the Russia, but now go to other Camelot. First other Camelot does not solve warming because most are supplies in the Arctic. That's the piece I want to see evidence. I will know this later. The second army's investment. Companies will be very Russian involvement comes to spill, which is the reason why they're not going to invest in only the war possibility. National argument is permutation to do the Camelot. This Camelot is not technically comparable at all because we just see we lead to offshore drilling. They just pick out of the Arctic, so we need not man the Arctic and Atlantic. And the question of the competition is man-level plastics. All this stuff does solve the Arctic demand for obvious reasons because it doesn't drill into Arctic. It's key to competing because Russia will take advantage of U.S. people to increase pricing, which intensifies conflict. Also doesn't solve any spills evidence because the U.S. president is not there. Also permutation to both its shield the links in that amendment. Also warming causes ocean agitation, which causes extinction. It also kills correlates balance types of the ocean. Absolutely leading extinction, acidification, confirmation, how to equal six sides of coral resources and muscles and manufacturers that sea waters can harm water really go shallow. Ocean facing warming water decrease oxygen. The future humanity and the ocean intertwined. Now loss of corals destroys food scarcity too. That's gone off to us and freeze or different consumer species could become increased over time to repeat that solve commercial history failing meaning that will not be able to make food security around the world. Now food shortage causes nuclear war. The FBI tells us the revolution just about like the global war tells us smart I need to gain action more for people hungry states not stable increasing credible stand for war three is investment self-regulating chain of reasons common feminism potential trade from nuclear war. Now conditionality has to be above each other. Combination is one conditional opposite or prove around conditionality. Conditionality about because leads to late development debates which kills argument irresponsibility too because the debates are not done based on evidence. Also the conditionality is illogical because you cannot reverse the status quo. You reverse to the one conditional opposite or a combination is illogical. It's a reason that you came to turn the practice. Go Neoliberalism. Neoliberalism is game solving environment that's the roast to content. Free market result of price and scarcity, more fail, part of the practice, directly dependent on the capacity to create pollution, waste, and income, face of companies, or go to green, eliminate waste, determine goals of pollution, concentration, 5 times higher U.S. Despite performance, you can only have resource interface or finer, create new and collect properly as increase efficiency by changing resource use and transforming waste into product intensity for intending of simple material. Now, frame of the alternative should be value based on the effectiveness to respond to institutions. South Point is education, advocating primary change, teach us to handle level power, and choose our ground. We three the ones who want to move value class. Also, the alternative fails. Shifts in the obstruction are used in market mechanisms. The only way to solve the environmental structure. Brian to us well. Every other divine market solution is getting to the weak. Live in the market. So there's an alternate system. We need something right now. We have to grapple the world we find solid and they refuse to become imperial. I don't agree with the same system. Now permutation to both. The alternative alone fails. As Ferguson 2000 and analysts who could be probably lead to religious style and political engagement. The most promising new forms of governance seen as the market mechanism and applying them to a new deals of food. They show the redirect the markets to report. The market mechanism stand for neoliberal defense. This does not mean that project contaminating interface and here neoliberal has something good. We will need to increase something experience whenever possible. Now warming turns the economy that's proven 724. The harms of climate change causing will be to the agriculture and process out here. The damage creates upward carbon so use economy face normal risk on making climate change. Now also renewables turn the economy going into us all the economics will over new projects with economic benefits to the other also to employ M757 industry focus manufacturing sector employ up to 10,000 people costing the government has opted to use these funds other part requires Apocalyptic rhetoric change as well in terms of populism, goes hand in hand with the race, allowance more likely having answer information when asked what regional allowance is likely to decide who exercise dosing environment for the city practice to rather give away failures for nation. All association arbitrary popularity, great actions and outrage for silence and limits growth and the nation. Popular arguments have the best aliens to spread a message by the warning is a structural impact. It kills population daily from disease spread out. That is a deep limit. Now, Discord, Sun's Chamber, Reality, Rosen, Scape, PUI 2001. Hey, today must do more than say links, creating reality, so it's claiming people study research. Studies that's more than hypothesis is impossible to generate empirical validation. Your life will have any on the impossible operators. The independent variable can only materialize the self-reporting and hill use language impossible to several variables that permutation both, and also there is no impact to the criticism that's articulated through Alton golden agenda. It won't pass as core and part of the examination. Democrats strongly renew action for the opposition. Democrats to debate promises will guarantee that chamber voting now. Field solving link Congress will backlash against themselves. Also, government funding HTF itself. That it's German part 17. There are two other issues Congress take care of government funding bill and HTF, and also this has not intrinsic logical policy maker to the plan to pass the this and poll cabinet to keep that. There also need to stagnate. The business groups attorney to the Senate Republican voting law, the Senate Republican covenant for House Republican McCall family voice out. The app is bipartisan. That's trailer. Trust me, there's a bipartisan support with the causing Hispanic officer gas level. There's a branch for ensure ends given now. ExIm Ptix is unstable. Does not only comment that slings be told when ExIm Ptix return passing away. ExIm loss and ExIm low lapses so banks not protecting away fraud and abuse. ExIm loss stability on no ExIm cannot create job. Export finance readers about rather than create. So we need one sector support another long bank to explore slave money while saving the irony input now. Arctic cooperations of science diplomacy, Berlin tells what the Arctic review science will to create basis the entire world in northern parts of the globe. The global recognition internationally first step towards election means the political will must cover Arctic stance and now strong science will solves every impact better optimizing SE advancing and no influence on countries that fail to provide opportunities to ideally war phase climate change anti-water shorting environmental degradation food and scale release extremism. Arctic extremism.
Alright. How does creating renewables solve for warming? Does the 1AC do anything to take CO2 out of the atmosphere?
No.
Okay,
We don't need
so
to.
the ocean is a carbon sink, which means that CO2 in the atmosphere goes into the ocean. How do you reverse the CO2 that's already in the atmosphere, which is acidifying the ocean?
Well, our evidence talks to the fact that acidifying the ocean is on the brink right now. If we continue large amounts of emissions on the same rate, important word there is rate, that we're doing the status quo, that will cause irreversible acidification that will cause the impacts we're talking about. Current rates of ocean acidification aren't enough to trigger the impact, aka
Right.
look at the fact
That's
that we're
fine.
not all dead
Let's
right
talk
now.
about the critique for a second. First of all, what is
Which one?
the Neela?
The bad one or the one without the impact?
The Neela. What does the
Okay, the bad
world
one.
of the permutation look like?
Permutation?
Yeah.
Permutation. Use the app for a non-neoliberal strategy, aka the Ferguson card outlines this very well. Things like normal neoliberal strategies, aka the example that Ferguson card gives, like giving food aid to Africa, which is normally based off of profit motives, and of giving countries other things and expanding our markets.
Right, that's
that
fine.
could be
Does
a nealiberal policy that could be used for a non-neoliberal purpose.
suppress-
because of the
no.
fact of this is
Michael,
that it keeps
Michael,
people from not
does-
starving.
Does suppressing Russia from the Arctic still happen in the world permutation?
Suppressing
Right,
Arctic
keeping
from the
Russia
world.
out of the Arctic, which is one of your advantages. Do you access that advantage in the
Well,
world
first, our
permutation?
advantage isn't keeping Russia out of the Arctic. It's cooperation to incentivize people to not go to war in the Arctic.
Sure.
And second of all, like the permutation, we're still like drill in our own EEZ, so that's why you don't solve the Arctic.
That's
advantage,
fine.
obviously.
Let's talk about the gender politics this ad. The Cornwall and Volvoci evidence, where does it indicate that the Democrats who are pushing for the bill now will have enough internal strife to stop the pushing from them?
Because of the piece of Cornwall evidence, there's no guarantee that the chamber will vote for in July, and that uncertainty for uniqueness means that the Democrats aren't going to have the things. Also, I'd just like to point out the fact that uniqueness is literally like a bunch of random news articles like predicting the future, which is why you should prefer the link debate, aka where you're being destroyed because you don't have a link to the natural gas drilling. But the fact that bipartisanship is
All right,
fostered
that's fine.
for gas drilling means that it will create this atmosphere of bipartisanship.
Okay,
You
let's
say
talk about
message
politics. What is
class.
intrinsicness? What do I have to prove that the politics just is intrinsic?
Well, you have to prove that if the judge should be the United States federal government, why the judge is not logical enough to stop the bad impacts of the politics bill happening if the judge has ambit over this dissent. You need to prove why you are actually some opportunity cost. Like if you're the government, you have to decide between whether you're doing a plan or actually causing something, aka like the impact to our advantage, or a dissent you actually have a link for.
Okay, let's talk about the McNutt piece of evidence on the Seabed. Where does this evidence indicate that oceans actually include the seafloor?
The part where it says that ocean exploration includes everything from the subsea floor to the ocean surface.
Right. What is the subsea floor?
The subsea floor, you know, like the ocean floor, and then you have like a little bit under it, like where all the resources are, where we do
Okay.
our
Thank you.
Yeah. Gavin, I'll look for more answers to this counterclaim.
agenda? Probably. I don't know, just in case it's been a PC link on the block, so that link turns by part.
Seems pretty useless for the 20
It beat 20 hour time allocation. No, nothing been disclosed. 3 of the authentic fresh off the starting.
stupid. CL.
No, it's the, yeah.
That's all I'm finding out.
Well, obviously, all the ones I retweet copy.
So what's the warrant for why the conflict between self-dominance?
Supplies in the Arctic. The better question is, what was the warrant for why the camp plan wasn't disclosed? Mumble, mumble, mumble.
The entire advantage is often against it.
I didn't hear what you said. Let's do both the last argument I made. I mean, the last argument before the add-ons. Condo was after the add-ons, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Got like 309 left.
I'll tell you later.
there's going to be topicality, the counterplan, and then the Arctic flow.
Oh, that's not
Wait, what was the last one?
Arctic flow.
Okay.
Is anybody not ready? Topicality. Our interpretation is the ocean is distinct from the seabed and includes the water column, but not the sea. Well, it's the one in sea marble. Now, the affirmative just develops the seabed. Our Berkman evidence says it is an entirely distinct jurisdiction, both ecological and legally. Now, focusing on the debate on water column is critical to centralized research and topic, learning about the actual ocean. This allows good core apps like including oceanic algal biofuels, wave energy, aquaculture, fisheries, tidal energy, geoengineering, dry sparkling, desalination. The list goes on. Now, we need debate. They do not meet our development. The affirmative develops the research is not the ocean. Additionally, the evidence only says that the bottom of the seafloor is an area which the floor is one, but it's not the ocean itself. Their evidence is also terrible because it just talks about participants. Well, ours is specifically says that ours is specifically in the context of marine policy. Now, the ethics settles out because that would determine the substance of constitutes something of the ocean means developing. It must be of the ocean itself. That's Oxford Dictionary nowadays. Of it includes material substance, including something that has built of works. Now, Marbury says oceans are constantly different than by Marbury says the oceans are constituted by the water column above the seafloor, which is not that. Now, the preposition of connects the phrase the Earth's oceans with exploration and development and completes its meaning. Absent this, the app is not topical. It's Norquist, no day. A phrase and a preposition contains its meaning. In a counter-interpretation debate, their interpretation is terrible. It is little place no concern the asset exploration. The development could take place because of Neoliberalism entire new area. Multi-level limits debate. In other words, think about it as they could use things like natural gas, oil, methane, rare earth elements, human-made islands, ocean beneath the ocean, tectonic plate research, sand period, town to the center of the earth, and the list goes on about things like prefer interpretation, qualifications for more reference is a collaboration, 94 European side institutes, inter-expert research. This view represents the scientific consensus on global ocean policy and intended to find our evidence has it theirs doesn't. Contextual evidence doesn't change the fact that they're seabed and oceans are legally and ecologically distinct, and that intent to exclude their evidence includes every portion of the ocean, or even those forests that prefer exclusion and exclusion of creates a manageable virtual topic. Now, our unique offense limits extension, and 3 unique links to the elements debate. The bright line of this exploration development can mean anything, so only a specific area or what is what is not the ocean is a bright line. Additional mechanism, they allow completely different types of extraction, which is a completely different mechanism, which is bad or kills them in private sector. Now, this isn't done by the USG, but it's leasing to another company, which means we don't get the US key or US federal government links in an independent reason whether or not topical. Now, it's better to over limiting the other limiting because the topic is so massive, and limits are crafting limited interpretation of oceans is critical to stabilize the resolutional focus and fostering after research on the planet mechanism. Our interpretation facilitates case-specific rates, which allows critical to accurately test the informant's desirability, which shall and generic rates don't focus on the same way. Ground argument. Ground argument. Perception of leadership or advantages solve US key warrants apps like OTEC and offshore winner examples talk class that solve, and they can still have access to good advantage areas, but our information is not precluded by energy-based affirmatives and biodiversity warming or economy are always accessible. Now, they also allow new mining apps that aren't necessary. That's Gmail sub 14 is the demand for rare earth mining constantly for the companies to discover the US ocean from apply minerals, gas, and leases the ocean, essence of nickel and copper and much more. This is not they didn't have to spend where these parts are uniquely educational. That's often why information is bad education debate. We can learn a great deal about the affirmative if the ocean was limited to water column and doesn't allow seabed. Now, the central issues regarding the future oceans hinge on renewable energy, which is different than fossil fuels, which artificially place a focus on an ocean literacy is critical environmental and developmental policies and oceans that steal it all fly. Ocean will help people manage the environment and need to provide information on ecosystem and how we affect the use and successfully the complete ocean. Knowledge is vital. They only do argument about generic fossil fuels arguments that get rehashed every year. There are other ways to get access to the economy and warming. Now, reasonability. If we want to limit this argument, they are not reasonable. If probabilities of competing interpretations, law stages, and warranted comparison, this is key to real cost-benefit analysis. Skills is a substance issue that should be debated often. Defense paradigm. Now, judge intervention takes away results from the and nowhere to the bottom of competing interpretation creates a racism as both sides compare their offensive defense and find the best definition of how to prefer over eliminating this massive topic. 2 and C or extra T debate only affirmative would involve structures or obviously the affirmative would involve building structures in water, but argument is that the only thing the plan can do. There goes beyond the scope of the resolution additional management explosion and development of the seabed, which makes the extra topical with respect to extra topicality along. The act to include portions that aren't in the basin of the resource prevents the reciprocal access to the shared term including considered waste. Because consideration on these will never have the ability to repair in the first place. Not only that we're in the hope of sharing the starting point of debate, but extra topic makes it so there's no starting point at all. Therefore, telling with regard to the advantages, making clear the entire basis of the intent of the affirmative extraction from the seabed, not development for counterplan. Evaluate the counterplan through the lens of sufficiency. When the counterplan is sufficient to solve that does not benefit outweighs it being optimal. Now the counterplan is sufficient. We prove there's enough natural gas in non-Arctic areas of the OCS. It increases U.S. production, lower prices. Now the Gulf has best evidence. The low events indicate that the Arctic has, or the Atlantic has a massive resource of natural gas that solves their advantages even without the Arctic. Now and also Gulf solves has best industry access. The Department of Interior and Personal programs will front gas development in the Gulf mix, where potential interest is great development of infrastructure is most and Atlantic reserves have massive potential. No way 14 gas developments in federal was included. The Atlantic could result in 1.3 million barrels a day of the gas. These numbers will take underestimated potential counterplan competition. Obviously, we compete there. Their context that is talking. Well, this says about our defense generally. The OCS where this is like Michael Koo says, it's everything in the around the U.S. before it gets to that ban part. So that's everything. What they defend when they see cross. Like our plan is only picks out of the Arctic and is a reason why. Additionally, they also sever substantially without material qualification. That's Black's Law Dictionary 91. Substantially without material qualification. And stick them towards our plan text says to define definite precision is regulated for offense for effective policy making. That's source next one. Episode of clear definition in terms of preconditions for effective policy decisions. Policymakers about critical terms in their right fashion and accessory misconservative and hostile. Knowledge we can make the same or the ability to connect additional labor research and debate. If we prove that they are not, we are competitive in the permanent content as it works. Additionally, separating out of the one AC is bad because it allows them to create a movement which hurts ability actually in a creative effective debate, which is a reason to be bad. Now, we obviously also alter that's our offense conditionality. Conditionality is good unless an negative test staff from left and right rejecting both sides of the required and negative debate for arguments that they don't normally conducting confirmation by side of these and their arguments themselves mechanisms of plan change and presenting option in the forces of the strategic cases and with specific careful plan solving the case building is important for the ability to build and create complete advocacy for oneself, making our positions defensible. That's referred to the generic impact calculus with lots of dissent. Additionally, there's it doesn't cause late-breaking debate. 1 to 2 hour solves this. Additionally, we could just read a bunch of essays and kick out of Arctic. Only going to talk about the Russia turn right now. U.S. is when the U.S. involves in new action in the Arctic, their energy development crosses Russia. Russia because Russia is a sphere of influence now. They were unique about why Russia we're not doing the Arctic in the status quo, which is our uniqueness for why this is the turn initially. And here's more links for why they kill U.S. Russia cooperation. Rivalries with the U.S. at the center kill diplomacy escalate. They can't solve that. Thing in 14. Their huggish plastering can decline and overgrown regional cooperation to create an answer source of the efforts to diplomacy will inherit the public narrative becomes that wonderful rivalry and kind of and Russia was slow, Russia distrust us. I shank out 14. Putin doesn't invasion complicated is blunt from Russia the awareness of U.S. intentions takes U.S. missiles 15 minutes to reach Moscow from Barents Straits. Well, emphasis on needing cooperation. Putin also said that Moscow to take into account naval presence and Russian energy security. That's well 27 important events in the narrative that shows that Russia considers itself leading Arctic by virtue of presence emphasis on onshore energy. These are types of or these arguments or these are reasons the leadership cannot solve because Russia sees the sphere of influence and doesn't want the U.S. to be involved.
Alright. Your 1NC piece of topicality evidence, which you claim says has an intent to define, is defining something I'll agree. It says that the open ocean, or the pelagic ecosystems are areas away from coastal boundaries and above the seabed. Just why is a definition about the open ocean, which would intuitively exclude the seabed, should be preferred for the topic when the resolution doesn't specify that?
The resolution specifies ocean.
Your card's about the open ocean, aka just the water, or pelagic ecosystems, which are things not touching the ground. I'm telling you, why doesn't that already intuitively exclude the seabed? And how is that pertinent to the resolution if the resolution is just about the general ocean?
Yeah, well, of course it excludes the seabed. That's what we're saying it should be excluded. Also, the Marbuff,
I'm telling you how your interpretation is germane to the resolution if it's not about the open ocean, not about how it excludes the seabed.
Yes, which is open ocean is the ocean.
Oh, where's your piece of evidence saying that the open ocean is the same thing as the regular ocean?
The ocean you should be talked about in terms of the water column, which is ecologically.
It says the open ocean should be talked about the water column. Which piece of what warrant do you have for saying that the open ocean and the ocean are the same thing?
the Berkman evidence talks about is only in the context of the Arctic Ocean, showing an example of what an ocean is, and talks about water column is different area legally in the Arctic Ocean than the seabed.
Oh, so just in the Arctic Ocean is
That's
different.
an example of one of the oceans.
All right,
a
couple questions. Anything touching the seafloor, is that topical?
Yeah.
Things touching the seafloor are topical.
Yeah, the argument isn't that you can't touch the seafloor. The argument is that you have to develop it and/or explore the water.
Oh, develop or explore the water. So as long as we put something in the water, we meet.
No, that's not developing the water. It's just putting a structure in the water.
So then, what is development?
Sure. So things like OTEC, where it uses the water and uses this for a process.
So if we use the water, we develop it.
Algal biofuels, aquaculture, stuff like that.
So if we use the water, we develop it. You're trying to make a distinction. I don't think has any fucking difference here.
There's a difference, Sure.
Okay, that's what I thought. Permitted the counterplan. You read this piece of evidence saying that substantially is without material qualifications. How do we violate that?
Yeah, so if you do permitted the counterplan, it has specific areas that are material qualifications, substantially without material qualifications, that you have to not be, or you can't specify a generic area, but have to be just generally.
So you're saying that without material qualifications means that if we specify a generic area, we have to develop all of it?
Yeah, it implies an action that would be on all of the...
All of it. I want you to point out the word all in any of your evidence.
In all of my evidence?
In any of your evidence. The word all, as you're trying to make this distinction here.
For the substantial card?
Anything that means that we have to develop the entirety of the outer continental shelf.
Well, that's what you said in 1AC Prospect. You said for the entire geological thing before the ban.
No, I said we developed the outer continental shelf. We didn't say where in the outer continental shelf we developed.
Outer continental shelf in 1AC Prospect.
Okay, that's fine. The piece of links evidence that you read. The first piece of Dingen evidence says that there's hawkish posturing going on right now that's impeding cooperation. Why doesn't that just not indicate this if it's going on right now? I'll just leave that as a statement of that.
Sweet. That's already been sent. The order is Neolib, politics, warming.
You're just not finishing it.
Mm-hmm. Here, we need a second. Yeah, I already started.
Military readiness. I knew this was happening. They wanted to read all the different warming in terms of your list, my 2AC blocks have just every single one.
Alright, stop right there. So, like 20 seconds used, which puts us at 2:59. Yeah, sorry, 2:49. That's better. 8.5. By the way, put Arctic before warming. Arctic before warming. Alright, is everybody ready? Awesome. Neil's not going to go for the permutation just to test the competition there. It's no one to politics. We're going to go, not going to go for concede that the bipartisan, the won't pass now, the bipartisan is not, hey, Lincoln is just lead difference enough. Fiat does not self-lead. You have to go through a policy that there must be a debate, but there's no trade-off here at all. Do not allow them to use the self-defense now. Interesting is not an opportunity, even if it's not an opportunity, it does not mean there's would pass, there's no offense, no go to the science diplomacy add-on. STEM is key to biotech sector, that's Curtis 14, STEM leading to the growth of the STEM skills, economic development, biotech development leads to biological warfare, science advantage challenge, existing biodefense efforts, that's Petroglyphs and McNulty 03. Revolution comes in the weapons limits up now, biological warfare leads to extinction, pathogen, self-replication, that's Sandberg A. Advancing that scientific life, making it possible to the extinction, level weight, still becoming circle that, causing him extinction, now go to our Arctic. Huh? Or sorry, before I go, science leadership allows the U.S. to push whatever technology wants. That's co-led and not the most advanced technology commands and respect international negotiations and scientific leadership. No other reason that's national interest. Now go to Arctic, where the biodiversity impact defense today. There's no impact to biodiversity indicate that there biodiversity collapses in the past, even if they went there, is some form of environmental damage not going to spill over there. Is no snow, there's no snow that leads to extinction there. Is no reason that any unique lessons that you should also prefer the chemical and the impact that ways. Now go to the warming advantage. The turning. The turn outweighs the lack of research and inevitability of drilling is bad. That's the one and see what was that they export the wrong card into even if they don't export the wrong card specific to natural gas infrastructure indicates that when we have to move that causes the specific economic donation and status quo solves global warming worse. As are transitioning to renewables, which are reducing emissions, proves that natural gas is the key to renewables development because the U.S. is already beginning to adopt none of that. Now the plan pushes warming over there because natural gas leads to huge buildup of energy terminals, shipping of LNG, and huge fossil fuel expansion, which ways natural gas benefits. That's the wrong card. Now, extraction causes methane emissions, which massively accelerate warming. That's 14. Natural gas emissions from fuel extraction pressing much higher than methane development become more than natural gas high. Half the potential CO2 those emissions because of fuel extraction is much worse for climate change. Now, coal trade-off, that's Walsh 11. Weekly goes to the numbers and prices of coal natural gas. Might actually spend a warning helps us in the sunlight cooling and offsetting more, but natural gas keep cleaning the items because of 20 cooling places all the which is one we clean the words roots of the rose moment now kills climate diplomacy turns the add-on that's Hill 2012. The other has been racing climate change and get the US and international natural gas. Oh yeah, that's a bad idea. Scratch that card. Deforestation construction process that's charm intent. Problems argue that the claims negative energy credit emissions direction the process image of the use of the beneficial transport and what is considered loss of government or 58 additional emissions of like 2 times methods of like power glass come from the natural gas these come in the groundwater field these significant in terms of the greenhouse gas just the problem with twice the rate of emissions without burning gas. Now the trade-off with renewables that dense sources emissions that's hard to 12 reckoning with a self-renewable energy because they go from take action real and the fact that gas the far more than 1 to 2 that's what the gold nation coming out you can European political consumption of the actions of the places that they can also potentially and I said that with they solve the environment even if transitions cause even they cause a transition to renewables not solved because the methane is 20 times more potent than natural gas is now even if the CO2 is more long term it doesn't matter the short term warming indicates that because the methane is necessarily more potent that indicates that the short term warming that all the warnings evidence indicate of the short term effect of warming there is no long term impact now
necessarily pushes us over into a feedback loop.
Yeah, that pushes back into a feedback loop. That turns the 1AC. Now go to the law of sea defense. Future that out of makes Arctic leadership impossible. Clearly overwhelms the affirmative. That's Bird 12. The government requires leadership more than 150 times LLC. The stimulus notion. The U.S. protection actions now remaining not part of the U.S. Lies the credibility of U.S. notion and now law prevents credible U.S. influence. That's Bird 12. Critics of these American suffer the U.S. Positive sides of the U.S. protecting the dimensions because of the remaining in on the credibility from the U.S. recommendations now that they do have not access to anyone who sees something because they do not law because they do not ratify loss. Now loss means we're dead last in the Arctic. That's Rice 12. An undersea land Russians started the nation preparing to fail. There was a big faulty Western even talking about we're in the last in the race. Even if Russia is failing now in the Arctic indicates that we what are geopolitically worse because they do not have any access to even though we abide by the law of sea according to the government we do not have any political access because there is no jurisdiction because we have not signed on the law of sea.
Except about the chemicals argument as a defense.
Yeah, the chemicals argument. Chemicals necessarily kill biodiversity and independently status quo because there is arguably leakage. Not that that's necessarily bad. There is no access to the offense.
So you need.
All right, we need to email all you the cards before you can.
Yeah, I want them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, before Ben.
Did you mark any of the warming cards you sent?
No, I didn't mark any of the cards.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's very good. Morning, our prep.
They're flash.
Yeah, we're not taking that.
Who reduced ceiling?
Why?
He wants to money here.
No, because Raheem doesn't work here, and I'm responsible for you right now.
He'll be fine. We're walking back to sleep.
You sent that up? I'm gonna go use
Okay. Did they come in yet?
No, I didn't get it yet.
I sent it.
Alright, I'll start. Okay, so what's happening?
I'm doing the one before you're doing everything else. You need one card being like biotech good.
Okay, so you'll take the whole flow.
Yeah.
Great. Do you want me to send something?
You have to. I'm saying just one of those atoms for the economy. So what's the economy tab? Which one? Yeah, the military stuff probably.
T.
Yeah.
There's another
Oh, that's the one. Wait, how the fuck do we lead to deforestation or in the ocean? I don't think you need to be copying this one before you need to focus on the count and the key line. Okay.
I don't really need cards.
Yeah, I've the entire one flow. Just read this. Did you get the the biotech thing yet? Or should I look for that?
I didn't find that.
Alright, I'll look for it.
I'm ready to go when you find that.
Just go and I'll find it in the middle.
Okay, where is that though?
It's in one of the files. I think I found it. Alright, just stop the cut.
Alright, just need it for the things.
Alright, I'll email this to you.
Reset for it.
No, not yet. Where's the book?
I'm not gonna read a card.
No, you need to read a copy and buy it.
Right, but not yes. Where do you want me to put warming? Before or after Arctic?
After Arctic.
T account on politics.
Cool.
Just have it. Are you emailing it? Or should I just use your computer?
I'll just bring up my computer and I need to highlight it, bro. How much time do we have left?
118.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, we have two.
Is that warming stuff ready, or you're just going to bring it up when I'm done with Arctic?
Yeah.
It's ready, or you're going to bring it up when I'm done with Arctic?
Yeah, bring up when we're done with Arctic.
Alright, the order is Arctic, warming, tea, counterplan, politics. Actually, I'm going to switch that up.
Oh.
Arctic, politics, warming. You got that good?
Yeah.
Tea, counterplan.
Are you down the card side?
They're not. Oh, I guess it's
Yeah.
first one I have around politics. Alright, everyone good?
Yes, there's an impact of biodiversity. They consider two independent scenarios of migration patterns and eastern species. There's no link to all of their Russia arguments. We don't defend Russia's SOI. That was the one to see cross is about signaling. Now, this is also not unique because we're already winning the natural gas game. It's about perception, which means it should have already triggered a link. There's no answer to our leadership internal link in the one to see that we prevent any conflict by military readiness and Arctic conflict or resolution. We don't let you any of these SEM arguments that they answer the wrong add-on that could not read in the 2EC. Now, their lost argument describes the status quo. The 1EC reverses that trend because it asserts leadership, which is able to solve all of the arguments that there's no leadership. Now, obviously, the 1EC changed that. We also didn't read the chemicals add-on, so that argument doesn't make any sense. Go to politics. They have no impact even to the science diplomacy add-on. No new arguments. You get us a 100% chance of extinction. New tune arguments are bad because the one here is based on the fundamental mess-ups and blood. New tune arguments encourage a late double debate where the negative wins every round. It's impossible to be affirmative Berkman. And federal rough evidence says it solves every impact in the debate, which means we solve back any of their arguments that they're going to make in the 2-1R. You should have a very low threshold for explanation because they dropped it. The only way to access science diplomacy is cooperation in the Arctic, which the counterplan would never be able to solve. So this is something the counterplan does not solve. Go to warming. We solve warming only lead to we're the only ones that lead to renewable transition because of price permit capacity. Let's renewables enter the red. They consider that we lead to experts because we don't lead to experts because of the leasing process. That takes out all their chance out of the methane argument. This makes sense because intervention solves the leakage only occurs at 10% of wells. That's Luke and Trump, but the CO2 outweighs this more permanent than methane. That's our cat lab. But they say coal is good even if coal particles in the air could possibly stop global warming to a very small degree. Scientific studies prove that carbon emissions swamp all the causes all of the other causes switching away from coal is the only way to avoid runaway warming in the long term. That's our Harvey. I'm saying deforestation. We trade off with coal and coal is worth for deforestation because of strip mining techniques and the fact that it's on land. Also, we're in the ocean, so there's no way we link to this. And biotech solves crop yield. GM crops able to be resistant to CO2. Crops can be genetically engineered to starve and rainfall to store the GM costs and also reduce hunger and make surviving crops. Which one working by biotechnology can alleviate this while by reducing crops. They're generally proud of the land and strip and extend the drought food wars impact that they didn't. So go to Top Galley. We meet exploration includes the sea blood for that's our McDonald evidence. You should prefer precision. Our evidence is from an expert, and it's also context. Their interpretation even about the resolution. We meet their argument because we put a rig in the ocean. Our counter-interpretation in the ocean includes the sea, but that's our knockout evidence. He's a legal ocean scholar. You should prefer precision and specific legal analysis because it has better intent to find inclusive definitions that way. Because breadth always depth. We learn more, which solves for processing and helps us retain our proficient information within the round. But now Afghan and education always is key to topic education because innovation and you have to be able to avoid steel debates. We access their research and journal links better. Our framing issue is that the 2NC impact debating is extremely light. You shouldn't do any work for them because they haven't explained what the impact limits actually is. Now, we don't allow any rare earth mineral apps or any of the other apps we're talking about because it's not the same because those apps are a one-time seabed intrusion, but the long-term nature of the app solves all their arguments because it's constant development at every level of the ocean, which means we solve all of them at best. We might be extra topical, but they can see the 2EC impact turn to extra topical. That just means they get more links to the heads. At best, you should reject the extra topical portion of their app because there's still a lot of them that they haven't answered. Go to the counterplan.
Extend reasonability and extend the education arguments for why resource apps are good.
Default reasonability continue competing interpretations conservation brought in the debate is always arbitrary. Now there's always judge intervention, which means it's inevitable. There's no random research checks all their limits arguments. What was the second part?
We're good for app education because we lead to resource apps and education about them.
We're better for app education because we learn more about the topic. Their interpretation of the topic means we never learn about resources, we never learn about natural gas or any other type of oil after the counterplan. Sufficiency was a stupid framing in the one and R because you have conceded 3 massive solvency deficits to your counterplan. The first is that it doesn't solve warming because natural gas is only in the Arctic, which means it is out of the counterplan's jurisdiction to solve it there. Warming evidence is way under highlighted and has no warrant. Second, solvency deficits, you cannot solve the Arctic. That's the obvious because you're not in the Arctic. The third is that you don't solve our spills internally because that's all about the U.S. leadership in the Arctic, which means the counterplan solves none of the case. Now, the counterplan is not competitive affirmative is textually plan plus permutation kind of permutation to the counterplan solves. They just explore other regions which is not competitive. There's no severance because this is just a test of competition, proving that the counterplan is something that's distinct from the F. Now, crossing proves how arbitrary their substantial interpretation is because no F would ever meet that not permutation to both. Our permutation shields the link to the net benefit. That is justified because our F could lead to something like the counterplan. This counterplan is not textually or functionally competitive because our F is just in the Arctic. Then they pick some of 3 other regions that we could possibly explore, which is not a opportunity cost to the affirmative. Now, conditionality is bad because it is not logical and excuse it to we see one conditionality solves their office. There is in around use because they have a gateway issue, which means that all of their other arguments link to the gateway issue. Then they have a counterplan that links to politics, which is also a voting issue. They do a lot of things in the 1 hour where they try to spike out of links and not answer any of our arguments. Conditionality has to be a voting issue, otherwise it becomes a no-risk option to the neck, and they can just throw things around in the 1 and C, which means they screw the 2 easy because they have no intention of actually going for apocalyptic rhetoric or going for anything else. I have 30 seconds.
Yeah, go extend biodiversity on Arctic. We need more options. Extend, like, it's the species. Extending more. Do some impact calc or some shit. Make turns case arguments to the Arctic conflict turn, because they don't have offense on anything else. Biodiversity turns Arctic conflict because the only reason why conflict occurs is because there are resources there. And if there's going to be no biodiversity ecosystems, that means that these
biodiversity turns all the Arctic conflicts. Says the only reason we're going to war is because there are resources, and somehow all of the animals and resources dying in the ocean means that there aren't any more resources to fight over.
Actually,
you want to take
card you read?
Yeah.
Here.
Just take the computer. You said after on outrage, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I have all the schools
and education.
Yeah, no.
Dude, I'm surprised that
I wasn't.
Oh shit, I meant to do this.
All the warming internal links were all just. Yeah, fuck. Well, yeah, you're supposed to read that.
Oops. I mean, I made that art.
Yeah, I know you made the art. Alright, whatever.
Done.
Sorry, I need more adults to art. It doesn't at all. Wait, you can't just like impact an atom without impact defense. It's just like novice rule 101.
Did we ever find out about Kevin Lee?
I'm
I'll take it at you.
I got 3 messages. I was watching Bits and Linda.
Okay, he's fine.
I'm still giving him more detail.
Yo, Matt. Look like you're probably hard. Take a picture of us like straight away from it.
Hashtag candid.
You done? Yeah. This has to be documented. This is never gonna happen again.
The reason I gave you a chill cuddle is because on it. Yeah, the impact turns. Yeah, double steps. So no link. How much time do you have left? It should not be that much. How much time do you have left?
We have 27 seconds.
Cool. Alright, let me see 1 and 2 evidence, dude.
Oh, I have to close everything.
Fuck. Alright, get my computer back. Get my computer back. Fuck. Get my computer back. We expected this.
Yeah.
Like 1 night.
The order is topicality, then the counterplan. This condo, if you're wondering. Is everybody ready?
Oh, yeah.
The limits is that always any of the often so you vote negative creates better in-depth education. We go in depth on the issue. Now default over to leading or limiting topic on where so many potential species, mechanism, and advantage the F can use. The Fs are only the oceans are 73% of the world, but apparently that wasn't enough for Michael Q. Limits that way the F ground because necessity burden of responsible joiner as we directly are clash against each other. Negative predictability is necessary to foster the debate with large amounts of clash. It is key to ensuring that the affirmative gets tested from multiple perspectives and allows the barriers themselves to be given over the topic. That was in the 2NC. Now they say let's see. We meet today. They do not meet the interpretation there. First off, they missed the of definition, which is a new reason why they are not topical. Their development and exploration is of the resources below the ocean, not actually of the ocean. Even if they do some are development of the ocean, that's extra topical, which is bad, and I'll get to that a little later. But additionally, the Marmara evidence indicates that the seabed is legally distinct as it relates to policy implications, which is the reason why this should be preferred to why this why they don't meet. Competing interpretation. For our evidence, the Marmara evidence is said a group of 94 European scientists talking about ocean policy edition of the Berkman evidence is specifically in the context of U.S. legal code and how it develops to the ocean. To prefer this evidence is only about a group of people talking about the ocean. It doesn't actually say that it's about the ocean or what the potential definition is. Even if they mean ocean exploration, then they not mean exploration of Earth's ocean because of the debate. That's above now. They say Akron outweighs, or they say breath outweighs. Breath is another long topic that was above. This is the reason why it should be default to over-limiting on such a massive topic. In this key set of precedent, which is good for their discussion. Now, Afground doesn't outweigh the Af. Already has massive defense they can, or massive advantage. They can see their argument that we give them We give able or apps on this topic, things like OTEC, algal biofuels, and aquaculture, which can allow them to access their arguments with warming perception, and economy. There's no unique reason why research rolling topics are uniquely better, but they are uniquely worse because resource apps allow it, or about things like are a completely different mechanism than the actions of actions that take place in the water column, which is the reason why these works now. They look through the RE evidence indicate that if you allow them to do stuff in the Seabed, it allows them to do things like rare earth mining, which is not on top, which should be developed, and there's no defense about why this fossil fuel or why this is good. They only have defense about why fossil fuels are good. Additionally, they can see the analysis that is better to learn about renewables and new types of energy to be transition away from fossil fuels. Then never really climb. This is the reason why you should prefer our specific education. Resource apps are not good to discuss. Kind of reasonability. Evaluate this in competing interpretations because it reasonably creates competing interpretation allows us to race the middles of the way our offense against each other. We also, if the when any versus the limits that is proved, they are not reasonable for that because their interpretation is not a good or reasonable definition. Additionally, it prefers because it allows us to minimize judge intervention, allows us to directly clash with each other and debate or use our analysis. They are to argue even judge intervention is inevitable. You should try to minimize the amount of judge intervention that is there. Evaluate T like a substance, like you would have just said, use offense, defense. Last thing is extra help. The app is extra topical. Now they all they extend here is offensive OY. It allows us more links and things like that. The limits this set from the 2NC proves that this entire different type of mechanism is a reason why are uniquely bad. That was about additionally reject extra topicality. It allows them to include parts of the app that are parts of the resolution, which allows us to prevent our ability to actually have predictable in preparation on specific areas. Additionally, even if you reject only the extra topical parts of the aspect, the entire app because we've proven with the ground or with the we made debate that seabeds are part of the ocean, not part of the seabeds are not part of the ocean, so they don't get to drill into any natural gas, so they can put some rigs out, but then you vote neg on presumption. On the limits I said, I don't know if I made that clear, but prefer the bright line interpretation from the 2NC because only seabed allows a bright line or a bright line of what is and means in topical breath or Education, exploration and development can mean anything, so it's no good. Conditionality. Conditionality conditionality is good. It creates a check on both sides. Checking confirmation bias. We are producing more information, which is necessary. Sorting out issues and bringing from more students. You can cross-like breadth is good from the calculation and not interact with the solvency mechanism of planning, creating challenging the presented options, force and after the case and point solvency and topicality or conditionality always topicality.
Oh, that sucks.
Or topicality always conditionality. Did I say conditionality is good?
Yeah. You just crossed the point.
Yeah, but I was making an argument about why.
Sit down.
Whatever.
Sit down, dude.
Alright, so I said,
Yeah.
Okay. Conditionality T. You're not ready? Alright. Vote F in this debate because our interpretation is going to be better for a more educational topic about ocean policy. I'm going to first go to conditionality, explicitly concede the biggest mistake that Michael has ever made. Breadth is good, concede that argument, and that's the reason why you should have a more broad topic for education. Breadth is the only way we get a diversity of knowledge around things. Think about it, informed citizens, we will never probably actually become policymakers, which is the reason why breadth is usually justified, because so that we can be informed citizens in the context of these stats, learning about a diversity of things, using that small amount of knowledge on a more broad thing so that we can apply it in different things. We don't know what we want to do with our life. The context of these stats goals, which is why we should not have in-depth discussions right now. Learn about as many things as possible so that we can have a more useful application for doing these later in life, which is the reason why breadth is uniquely justified in the context of the abstract. But here's the reason why breadth is justified uniquely in the context of ocean policy. That combines with that education arguments. The way that ocean policy is shifting in the stats goal is towards research development and extraction in the context of the stats goal. Yes, it might be neoliberal, but the reason we are utilizing our oceans in order to actually better our lives, we're using our resources, we're getting rare earth minerals, we're getting natural gas in order to actually improve standard of living as proven by a warming advantage. All of our reasons why our advantages too are reasons why this affirmative should be discussed in energy apps in general, because this is a reason why we need to learn about software warning. Cross-apply from the K from the 2 A's to say that we need to actually have public advocacy in order to solve for the environmental issues, and only debates about these types of public advocacy key, and the only thing that gets this is our interpretation, because we're the only interpretation that allows for research to out, which is the point difference that it will come down to. This outweighs any of their limits argument, because the total impact of limits was clash and skills. What does clash mean? Just having debates about things. If the clash that we're having is irrelevant, things that we should not be discussing, and there are more important things that we're not discussing, that means that clash is useless, and a reason why it doesn't have a total impact in the concept of the affirmative. Go to T-flow pattern, the first argument, the clash arguments were not warranted in the 2NR. Gavin explicitly made the argument during the 1 year that you should not allow any new 2NR impact calculus because the 1 year is the most precious piece, and most precious piece. The last time for us to read cards, Michael, if you cannot trace a line from the 2NR to the 2NC, wait, where did this clash impact calculus? Just scratch it off your flow, which is that you should just vote affirmative presumption because they don't have any impact to the T standards going on right now. He has also dropped the argument that functional limits check the literature and more substantial in the resolution prove how you can always have clashes, always it's Neville and clashes always Neville. Affirms have to be big. They have to actually develop and explore
the ocean some substantial way, and there's always going to be literature pondering the fact that there's much literature about natural gas and the way that ocean policy is shifting to natural gas proves two things. One, it proves that there's impact events to the class arguments because it proves that it's a predictable thing, and predictability is a better internal link to class because predictability means that it is germane to the topic and should be researched, which is the reason why debates will always be level, and he could get the type of debate wrong. The second argument is that literature proves that it's good for education because this is a germane debate going on in the status quo. Think about it, how oceans are being used for natural gas. It's the reason why we need to do this. 77 he says it outweighs Afghan. There was no warrant to this argument why outweighs Afghan. He did not extend some fairness things, so I don't even have to go for my Afghan arguments, except the reason why we have them from the ground is the reason why class is good. He says that class is key to a pretty big class. He says that net ground is for the pretty active class. There was no warrant for this argument. He says that we don't meet E. Are you fucking serious? The cross-section improves why we explicitly meet the if of dilation because all he says that we need to do like put something in the water in order to meet. Yes, we put a rig into the water, so that just proves that we're extra topical, except the Afghan arguments prove our extra topicality is good, and the point of the topicality is to be proven in the first place. Now the definitions, right? Yeah, I'm gonna make fun of his definitions because they are that bad. The first piece of being made evidence every day he claims to be the most precise definition is not precise at all and not to be made about the topic. And this is what I was getting into in cross-examination. The piece of evidence is about the open ocean and paleological ecosystem, which is not about the ocean in general. Yes, the open ocean would just refer to the open water in general, which is the reason why it is not about the topic, which is ocean in general. Ocean in general means that includes the seafloor, and that's piece of McDonough evidence, which should be preferred because she is an ocean exploration 2010 executive chair-in-chief of scientific diplomacy, and our science diplomacy impact that he conceded proves why science diplomacy is important and why scientific policies drive our ocean policy and the research and the things that we should be discussing, which is the reason why we're the only ones able to impact beyond our impact qualification. The programming evidence is also not specifically because it's not about the ocean, the word ocean, it's not mentioned once, it's about the seafloor. If we prove that the previous piece of evidence is not relevant, that means I don't have an internal link to their seafloor arguments, because of that. Also, our evidence, the talking evidence that counter-indication, which is that the ocean includes the seafloor, is from the U.S. Code, which is the first thing policymakers look to when they're researching policies and laws, because the U.S. Code is what determines every single thing. The context of every single thing. The breadth and level argument was not warranted to us, so you should not allow this. And all our education are good arguments, justifications for this. Now he makes a bunch of arguments about some advanced areas about research, except if you cannot flow it, don't even evaluate these arguments, because these arguments were not articulated clearly enough to actually do an argument. He says that renewable education is good. I'm going to internal link turn the shit out of that argument because of the fact that the resource status and drilling about the ocean is the only way to lead to renewable education, because that's the only way resources can be used in constant renewable. Finally, the being interpretation debate. The only reason why I'm presenting irreasonability is it proves the substance trade-off for the topicality debate, because it proves why the apps should be discussed when the convenience relations only lead to a race to the bottom where teams just try and exclude each other with definitions instead of actually debating about the topic, which means that the app education argument is the only way to get actual knowledge about the ocean policy. And the reason why judge intervention doesn't mean anything because of the fact if the judges end up being overused this debate, that doesn't mean anything, so we should be discussing ocean policy in the first place.
Huh? I close?
Like all of
I flipped the 2 and R and 2
damn.
So take the time you need to make a decision, and then we'll collect them in the morning.
What are their names?
What?
What are their names?
Hey, can you please?
You don't need to give speaker points.
That's Drew. That's Michael. That's Gavin. And that's Michael. And you can probably tell what our speaker positions were.